sense then, right? Have they been able to piece together some of the solutions to the problems that they are having? They are subbing players back and forth. Matt is in this week, Golden Glue is in. I got to talk to their manager a little bit earlier today. He talked a little bit about some of the reasoning behind their substitutions, a lot to do with just most recent performance in scrims, but also who they think fits the current meta best. So if a certain champion is very important in this meta, who is actually playing that the best in the scrims, and that's who they're going to go with. Past that, it's not necessarily the easiest strategy to enact, I think, because you have to have synergy among your 5-man roster, right? And if you do not have that, even if one player is better individually on the champions, it's not necessarily going to solve all your problems.
Very true. And meta or not, Team Liquid learned the lessons of watching other people play against CLG and immediately ban Aurelion Sol away.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But the funny thing about it is either way, I think CLG gets something from this pick. It feels like teams have not yet figured out when CLG wants to play Aurelion Sol, and that is why it's not just permabanned. If you know that they are going to pick it in X situation, you'll always ban it in that situation, right? But teams have not been able to kind of crack the code and figure out why they're picking it and why they aren't in other times.
And it's one of those situations, I think, a lot of the times when we see it locked in, CLG's locking it in 4th or even 5th in a draft. They're not going, oh, first pick Aurelion Sol, get it, get it, get it. And I think that's one reason why Huhi's able to win so consistently on it. He picks it into good matchups. He picks it into appropriate compositions. But one thing that has a ton of good matchups and lots of appropriate situations to pick it in is Caitlyn, which is locked in first for Team Liquid. Hell of a way to start the draft off. Yeah,
especially when Piglet is a guy who has been kind of the linchpin of the Liquid team. Oftentimes when they are succeeding, Piglet is really doing well for himself. We talked about kind of the tank compositions that they were able to succeed with, though, earlier in the week. Galio was big. 2 of the biggest tank junglers being taken off the table there as well. So if you do decide to go for these multiple AD carry style compositions, you do need some sort of a front line. You do need this kind of supportive style champions who can really protect you. Braum's going to be one of them. Gragas was already taken away. A number of the other junglers that are those tank style junglers have been banned away here too. So we'll see what the answers are going to be for Team Liquid in the later phase of this draft.
Liquid's draft early on is kind of looking like what they were unable to handle from Echo Fox yesterday, where you had a couple of marksmen and then you had a tanky support and a tanky jungler that just built Knight's Vows and sat on them, protecting them. But the thing is, Counterlogic Gaming has taken the Kassadin into these two.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what the bans are going to be if CLG is worried about something like an Ivern perhaps coming out, which I think can help to enable these AD carries very well also. The Kassadin is even better into Corki than it used to be because Corki's damage is almost only magic. The auto attacks are 80% damage, magic damage, and then obviously your rockets are magic damage, etc. Frost bomb. So much of the damage is magic, and Kassadin with the Q can have very successful trades there. You can kind of just survive the early phases of the game and then hope to really outscale the Corki in the side lanes.
Well, going into that second part of the draft, we'll see Elise and Shen banned away by Counterlogic Gaming. They know their opponents have locked in everything except the jungle and the top, so you got to target those. That is the nice part for them looking at the early part of Liquid's draft. There's no guessing games to play about where anybody's going to be going. You know exactly what Caitlyn, Corki, and Braum are going to be doing. Gnar banned away by Liquid, trying to keep Darshan away from that. One more to go for them.
So far, I'm pretty happy with the draft here from CLG. I do like the fact that they were able to get a nice mid lane matchup despite 2 early bans going over towards Huhi, not really affected too much by that. And there are a lot of these kind of top lane DPS style champions still available for Darshan, and I think that's why they're going to leave him for last pick. They've banned out quite a few of the top laners, with Kennen, Gnar, Galio even, and Shen all off the table. Perhaps Darshan can find a matchup where it's going to be favorable for him on something like the Jax or the Fiora or whatever.
Renekton locked in for Team Liquid, so now at least they know that's what Darshan's got to deal with. That's what he'll have to take into that. You mentioning the Fiora, that's one that we see a lot into Renekton, that skill matchup.
Yeah, and it can certainly be one that you can handle that Renekton in the earlier stages of the game if you can play it very well, especially if you can utilize your parry to actually parry the stun from the Renekton. You can win early duels, and even if you can't pull that off later in the game, you will certainly outscale. Obviously, that does not mean that the Fiora wins every time. The big thing with the Renekton is that you can much more easily join team fights, really join in on the 5v5, which is the kind of style that Liquid wants to play anyway. They are not looking to split push out a game like this. If Fiora and Kassadin get locked in, that is a very powerful 1-3-1. I do really like the fact that CLG has also drafted very heavy wave clear in their 3-man squad. When you look at Zyra, Ashe, Gragas, some of the best wave clear from those roles across the board. So that is the 3-man squad that would have to kind of hold the line and defend these turrets while Kassadin and Fiora are buying time in the side lanes and really being able to scale, where Liquid is going to want to group up, is going to want to brawl 5v5, and really look to force these fights onto CLG before they can kind of build up to this really strong point on Kassadin and Fiora.
And Liquid knows they've got their work cut out for them. Not only has Counter Logic Gaming drafted themselves a very coherent and cohesive team composition that has a clear-cut goal and very clear win conditions for it, CLG is also one of the top teams currently in the North American LCS, 7-2 on the record. And with the results of the earlier games, they could easily get themselves a first-place spot if they walk away with a win here.
You always have to worry a little bit with CLG, like, did they get too greedy in the draft though, right? You have,
true,
like, that is kind of my one big concern. You know, late game, yes, they are going to be extremely powerful. Yes, they have a very solid comp, but did they get too greedy? I mean, this is Caitlyn, one of the best sieging champions in the game. You have the Corki is going to push in Kassadin early and be able to try to poke away at that turret. If you can make a play bot side and knock down that first turret, rotate mid with your Caitlyn and Corki, start sieging up on the Kassadin. Kassadin has almost no wave clear in those early stages, so CLG is going to need to at least hold even in these lanes until they have Fiora and Kassadin at a strong enough point that they can put them in the side lanes and bring 3-man squad mid.
And I really want to keep an eye on ReignOver as this game goes on too, because we used to know ReignOver as an exceptionally talented Rek'Sai player. He's more than done his fair share of work in the champion in the past, but for those of you who didn't happen to see the stats come up at the bottom of the screen during Champion Select, despite all the picks and all the new eyes being turned onto Rek'Sai since the buffs and since the slight rework, she's got a 32% win rate in NA LCS right now. The pick has not been seeing a lot of success.
Yeah, it has been super high priority, as you said, but just not really working out. And it's kind of one of those funny things where sometimes these picks do pop up in NA that are super popular, but for whatever reason, they're just not working out. I think a lot back to, you know, top lane Jace. That was something that there was an abysmal win rate in NA. It was something at like 13% for a while. Like, it was super low. And Rek'Sai is not at that level, and I think partly it's people kind of getting comfortable on this new style of the champion and really figuring out what works, because you are still seeing a lot of differences in builds. Some people go Cinderhulk, most go Warrior, some are going Chilling Smite, some are going Skirmishing Saber. You know, there is definitely some disagreements on how you should build it and how it should be played.
And honestly, that's one of the most fun times to watch a champion be played, because you get to see the differences in style. It's not essentially a solved equation where everybody knows what variable to plug in and the optimized way to play it. And once we finally do see that optimized way discovered, it'll be interesting to see how people start to deal with that.
Yeah, and it's also, one of the things I really like is seeing players with a very strong understanding of the fact that the optimal play and the optimal build can differ by team comp and opposition's team comp, right? If you are having all these hyper carries and stuff on your team as this Rek'Sai, then hey, maybe you build Cinderhulk in a Sightstone. Maybe all you have to do if your lanes are already winning is just get vision on the other jungler. That makes a lot of sense. But, you know, if your team is behind and you have the early kills, maybe you need to be very aggressive and try to turn it around that way.
Lourlo not having what needs to happen in this top lane right now. Fiora, the hyper-scaling champion that we talk about, that 35-minute death sentence of having 3 items. You don't want to see yourself get pushed around a level 1 by that.
No, but her level 1 is actually really strong because you can proc these vitals. If you can use the auto into a Q for the essentially the auto attack reset and hit that vital, you do put out a lot of damage. And if Darshan is able to get some of these favorable spawns on those vitals, it can be pretty devastating. But Dardoch, level 2 here. This is a level 3 ReignOver. He does not have Smite. Dardoch does not know this, though. ReignOver does back off.
Dardoch will grab his own red buff. ReignOver, sadly without that Smite, that is going to be what forces him off. But showing up like that, you can see he's not having any fear towards moving into Dardoch's territory.
And I think one of the kind of overlooked things about this is sometimes that he's playing with a Kassadin, right? Dardoch is almost never going to have assistance from the mid lane until post level 6. Like, he is going to get pushed in so hard that Golden Glue can respond and really help out ReignOver, whereas Huhi cannot do that at all. So that gives much more freedom for ReignOver to get aggressive and follow around his opponent in the jungle.
Dardoch actually now the one to flex his muscles onto ReignOver, moving in, scaring him away from the Gromp. Aphromoo going to be forced to flash bottom side, exhaust down onto Stixxay, forced to pop his heal in retaliation. Flash going to be blown too. All 4 summoner spells gone for CLG as Dardoch finds himself caught out in the top part of the river. Golden Glue looking to make the damage happen. First blood goes over to Lourlo, and CLG mistakes across the map.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. This is why you don't get to invade when you have the Kassadin on your team. He gets collapsed on from all sides. I mean, you have such a heavily pushing mid lane for Golden Glue. There's nothing Huhi can do to respond. Like, look at where Huhi is on the map. He is under his turret, right? Lourlo has an easy response path from his turret. He's going to get there faster. Golden Glue is going to get there much faster. Dardoch making that play is so over-aggressive, and like, it's essentially showing no respect to your opponents. It's saying that they won't be able to make the right play even if it's gifted to them.
Now this I find interesting. Azael, the fan vote, very, very close. 54 to 46%. Huhi running himself away from Golden Glue and maybe a gank from ReignOver, but a lot of faith from Team Liquid's fan base in their team, even if they haven't been having the most stellar split so far in Summer. They're saying it doesn't matter. They can go toe-to-toe with CLG at the top of the table and earn this win.
And Liquid does have a very loyal fan base, and definitely hoping that they will be able to bounce back and start righting the ship, so to speak, as Liquid has had kind of a rough go of it for the last while. And before that, though, they were kind of one of the top teams in the NA LCS for quite a long time. I mean, the Liquid fourth memes are kind of a thing of the past. I think they would be happy to take those back at this point.
When you're trying to contest for first, you don't like the fourth meme because it's saying, oh man, we're not first. But when you're currently sitting towards the bottom of the table, fourth sounds pretty good.
Does sound pretty good. Unfortunately for Darshan, top lane is not going to feel nearly as good as he is going to be laning against a first blood double buff Renekton, which is always going to kind of put a damper on things. One of the things that it's actually working in Darshan's favor, though, is the fact that Lourlo did TP back to make that play happen. So Lourlo did not have a great buy, and if he can kind of stalemate this lane and make Lourlo stay around, even though he has that first blood gold, he's not actually able to base and buy up right now to have this kind of huge power advantage.
Right, the advantage just translates into a cloth armor. 15 extra armor. That's not really going to break your lane in half and make it so Fiora's forced away.
Exactly, and what Darshan is going to try to do, he's going to base up, likely look for something like a Tiamat or whatever he wants to get. He's going to get his early buy, then TP back, and he's going to try to hold Lourlo in lane as long as he can, because if you can keep Lourlo in lane, then he will never be able to have that buy advantage.
Ooh, mistake on the riposte from Darshan. Doesn't actually end up dodging away from the stun out of Lourlo. Prey Seeker fired off by ReignOver. Lourlo popping his own ultimate just to make sure he got as much damage as he could in that trade, but Darshan's still alive for now. Dardoch hanging around too, trying to prevent any sort of a dive here. Darshan should have riposte available in case they try to make this happen. It's very risky.
Yeah, and unfortunately now, Lourlo is going to get that base off. Darshan TP'd back in, but was not respecting the level 6 there from Lourlo, and I don't know if you even want to stop that. Is he just dead now? I guess he'll be okay.
No,
but
he's all right, but that was brave.
Yeah, I mean, he is okay for now, but ReignOver back up to the top again. Darshan just really doesn't want his opponent to spend that gold. That is why he is going for this, but it's putting him in kind of a rough spot because he took too much damage on it, and it could be dove now. They're going to look to set it up, at least to zone him off this farm. I don't think that CLG can really 2v2 this.
Liquid trying to fight it. TP coming in. CLG. This turnaround could be pretty big for them, shifting the momentum of this game. Huhi with the
here too, though.
The wall. Golden Glue going to be arriving now as Lourlo gets himself out. ReignOver the target. CLG health bars below half on 2 members. They need to play this cleanly. Still 3 versus 3 for now. Huhi trying to make that move. Phosphorus bomb comes out. Darshan here in the middle.
He parried the slide.
Team Liquid is annihilated. A double kill for Huhi.
That parry was so good from Darshan because not only does the parry stun the person who's using the CC, it stuns everyone in that line. So he actually parries CC, stuns all 3 members, it looked like, of Team Liquid there, and they get just annihilated.
You see all 3 health bars tick down to about 100 at the same moment, and then Huhi wipes them off the map. Beautiful from CLG. Now, though, they will lose their bottom lane tier 1, and Liquid will grab turret first blood.
And that 8-minute turret, the bot lane right now for TL is slamming Stixxay and Aphromoo. They are very far behind after losing that turret. And here's the play on the top side again. They certainly couldn't go for this 2v2, but a nice avoidance on that slice and dice from Darshan means that Lourlo does not get the reset. Huhi TP's in. Golden Glue has roamed up, but Lourlo already fairly low, and CLG plays this very, very well. They have the squishy members in the back line. Then Huhi flashing forward to get the slow on multiple members. in goes Darshan. Now look at the parry right here. Yep, there it is. He parries 2 people, it looked like, got stunned by that. And everyone just kind of gets AoE'd down and cleaned up.
He stunned the other 2, and then Lourlo had to root himself to do
There's the tilt.
The Renekton stun, and Golden Glue very visibly unhappy with the way that played out.
Yeah.
CLG getting easily invested at.
I mean, this is a Roa completed at like 8 minutes and 30 seconds for Huhi. That's insane.
Yeah, you were talking about how he's going to get shoved in by Corki, and the early game's not going to be fun for Kassadin. Well, when you get past early game at 8 minutes, all of a sudden it's a very different story.
Yeah, and Golden Glue knows he's going to have to lane against this guy now, who is going to be a monster, and that's not going to feel too good. But they do have to kind of worry a little bit about the fact that they lost this bot lane turret this early. It's somewhat alleviated because they had gotten these top lane kills, but you can certainly expect Caitlyn, Corki, Braum to look to start sieging up mid, to try to push in this Kassadin and really take that over. We'll see how CLG wants to respond, if they want to just send Huhi bot and hope that their dual lane can then hold on in the mid lane and defend these turrets, because you certainly don't want to start bleeding out too many turrets early on.
And you mentioned that exact point in Champion Select about how if they do move into mid lane, the wave clear isn't there. Rod of Ages or not, Kassadin does not have that built into his kit, not from safety. So Huhi will be tasked with having to bring somebody down towards his lane to defend against that if it goes that way.
Oh, that ward just expired as Dardoch moves up here, so that is very unfortunate timing for Lourlo. Lourlo is kind of showing some respect over to the fact that the jungler could be there, but for now, looking like he will be safe.
ReignOver biding his time mid lane, demonstrating some serious patience here, just wanting Huhi to jump forwards.
And look at all the vision control from Liquid around this dragon and around the blue side of CLG's jungle. They have established entire control around that area. And even though CLG does spot it out now with that hawkshot from Stixxay, there's nothing they can actually do to contest it. So that will be a dragon going over to TL. And they have gotten both all the summoners from the bot lane earlier on, the first turret from the bot lane, and now, really, the dragon comes from the bot lane pressure too. So Matt and Piglet certainly doing a lot of work here.
And Piglet's the guy that you want to see doing work on this team. This is the guy that Liquid has been trying to build a team around for so long. This is the guy that they want to be their empire player. And if you can get him going and have a team that can protect him, you're doing your plan right.
Yeah, you certainly are. And ReignOver with that Ruby Crystal, I'm guessing it's going to be building in towards that Cinderhulk. There are no guarantees. Obviously, he could be going another route, just picking up a little bit of HP now before he builds into something else. But you would expect him to go that more tanky route, and there is the Cinderhulk completion. So he wants to kind of be that front line for the team.
Lourlo trying to go in on Darshan here, recognizing he has help nearby, not afraid.
And the Caitlyn actually going to make the rotation to top, so is spotted out now. Aphromoo and Stixxay going to have to book it up top as fast as they can to try to defend this. Fiora cannot wave clear against that, and you need the Fiora to be constantly picking up this farm, so Darshan will head bot lane to stay in this 1v1. Could also look for some sort of a play, but they don't really have any wards to really go for that. And Piglet may actually kill off this turret before they're even really able to get up there, because he has actually a lot of damage with the early AD purchases, plus the Zerker Greaves. He's shredding that turret.
That arrow would have connected. There maybe could have been some potential there for Aphro to follow up, but Piglet with some fancy feet makes sure that that doesn't happen. And now he's got Matt right next to him. Even if he gets into trouble, Braum's so good at disengaging. It's difficult for CLG to make a move onto these guys.
Yeah, and CLG's bot lane, you know, they couldn't hold the bot lane turret. I don't think they're going to be able to hold this one either. Piglet just has it so low. Unless Dardoch comes to make a play.
He's trying, but he's just so slowed down.
And Liquid is roaming up. There's going to be 4 men top, so they are going to knock down that turret almost certainly. Huhi is shoving up mid lane. We'll see if they can get anything else done with this, but I think CLG needs to back off. This turret is about 2 hits from going down, and there are multiple members missing.
Meanwhile, bottom side, full one-on-one breaking out between the top laners. One more hit from Darshan will do it. Lourlo trying to keep himself alive, but it's not going to be enough. Darshan pausing an extra half second to get one more little bit of healing, but he will take him down in that 1 versus 1. However, losing the top lane tier 1 for the side of CLG.
Yeah, and they've lost 2 turrets. Darshan can buy them time, but they do need to utilize the Gragas and the Zyra and this Ashe to be able to wave clear it out. We'll see what kind of early purchases Stixxay is going to go for. He may need something like a Shiv or a Hurricane just to kind of help with that early wave clear if he can get it. And here is the play again. Lourlo has been getting chunked down, and Darshan moving forward, very confident to set up these plays. So he procs the Vital, then pops his ultimate to reset, and have another easy Vital on the same side. He's simply waiting for that turret shot, which was guaranteed to hit him, get as much healing as you can, then step out of range.
And you brought it up in Champion Select as well. The CLG win condition, the 1-3-1, how strong this team is doing that when you have a Fiora and a Kassadin. Fiora's 2-0-2, Kassadin is 2-0-1. The gold is where it needs to be on this team. It's just the difficulty, like you said, in making sure that Stixxay and Aphromoo and Dardoch can hold the line as 3.
Yeah, and once Stixxay and Aphromoo, I think, once they are kind of at a more stabilized point, once you see some more items being picked up on this AD carry, then you certainly will have enough wave clear to really kind of hold that line and be able to at least kind of hold it neutral against the Caitlyn and the Braum. Until they get to that point, it is going to be a little bit more rough, but they're certainly going to be having a lot of ways to buy time with Darshan, who's very strong, and with Huhi, who's also very, very strong.
And comparing teams that are at the bottom of the standings to teams that are at the top of the standings, one of the biggest differences you see between them, usually, it's not a guaranteed rule, but it's pretty common, being able to take leads and turn them into bigger leads, being able to turn a lead into a win, right? That translation process in terms of actually blowing up the enemy nexus. That's what I'm going to be looking at for Liquid right now, because you are in a position where you feel stronger, where you feel more in control, except in this Fiora versus Renekton matchup. This is where they're slipping away a little bit. But elsewhere on the map, Piglet is huge.
Yep.
This team has some real momentum opportunity, but can they find it and use it?
And how well do you play to your win conditions, right? Like, that is another really big thing. Sometimes some of the lower tier teams, so it's like, well, you're really strong if you group up right now, but they stay too long in the side lanes. Or you're really strong if you can avoid the team fights, but they don't get enough vision to be able to do that. So you need to play really around your strength. And I think for this squad, it is going to be sieging right now. So we need to see them continue to pull that off. 2v2 up here. They're going to have to bail out for CLG.
Yeah, no way you're making that fight happen underneath the enemy turret. They will knock Lourlo back. Still looking to go in even further now. ReignOver retaliating with plenty of damage on his own. Rek'Sai does so much DPS now. Always got to be aware of that ulti as well. Not only does it do execute damage, you can dodge away from many abilities, especially the longer telegraphed ones, if you time it correctly. Aphromoo rotating towards top side, but he's not needed today.
It's just a really good counter gank there from ReignOver. Still, unfortunately, because Lourlo kind of stepped a bit forward, they're able to trade a lot of damage back, threaten him off the turret, and that means a turret going down for CLG, and that solo gold going over to Darshan means this Fiora is just going to get to a strong place that much faster. That is very, very good for CLG. Get some of the global gold back here. Hydra already completed now. We talk a lot about the kind of 2 and 3 item points for Fiora. 2, I think, is really where you're starting to bully people very hard, and 3 is often where it becomes almost impossible to ever lose a 1v1.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes difficult to lose a 2v1 depending on the champions. Once you have 3 items on Fiora, with Death's Dance normally being that 3rd item, the amount of regeneration and damage block, essentially, that it gives you, very, very difficult to deal with. You can see right now, Piglet this game, CSD plus 11. Normally, he's -1 for Summer, so a better game than he's used to having now. Infinity Edge completed on him, Trinity Force on the Corki, Black Cleaver on the Renekton. Those single item power spikes are starting to show, but for Lourlo, it's still pretty rough.
Yeah, he's just going to get chased down over and over, and if you leave him in a long lane against Fiora, nice pick there.
All right.
Dardoch. We'll see if they can get a second dragon off this.
Blue taken low, Huhi trying to get some sort of revenge for this, but considering ReignOver's right there, Piglet's right there, you can't chase him.
Yeah, second mountain would be very nice for TL. We talked about what they want to do. They want to group, they want to fight, they want to siege. Mountain is going to really be able to allow you to knock down these turrets that much faster. And one of the best ways to actually shut down the split push later in the game is to go to the Baron, take down that objective, and force your opponents to group and fight against you. And Dardoch over here trying to clear out that ward. The Braum passive goes up, he gets stunned down and just bursts it out very, very quickly. This is a Runic Echo's Gragas, so he's going to be pretty squishy for a while.
You can see him starting to build some tank items now, but it'll still be a little ways before those come online. Considering his inventory now consists of the Crystalline Bracer and a Cloth Armor, we might even be seeing a Righteous Glory come out with that guy.
And Righteous Glory, I think, is very strong right now, especially if you are going to kind of pair up with Huhi or Darshan. You can speed your guys up, try to chase someone down one of the side lanes, but double Mountain Dragon, Caitlyn very strong, trying to siege up. The team is not here just yet, but they are TPing in on the side for Huhi. Not sure if they can actually start up a fight just yet, but they are looking.
Thinking if they can go for it. Stranglethorn's used, thrown down, catching out Piglet and Matt, who are both going to be chased back now. Huhi jumping in, exhausted, so he won't be able to stay there much longer.
Package on Golden Glue.
Golden Glue's got package if he can use it, if he gets that window. ReignOver going to be taken low. Huhi's still not jumping all the way in.
Now, one thing I really want to point out, this may seem minor, but Darshan did not join that fight. This is one of the things that I have been somewhat critical about CLG and their split push is Darshan too often joins the fight. You need to rely on the rest of the team to not die, to disengage, and then you play greedy. You get those advantages, and for a change, Darshan stays bot. He picks up the extra CS. He gets a turret for the team, and this is exactly what you want from the Fiora because you can get to that unstoppable stage so much faster if you're willing to play selfishly on a split pusher, and that's something that Darshan is finally doing in this game.
And it's not just selfishness, it's trust. Knowing that your team is not going to all end up dead because they bite off more than they can shoot in that 4 versus 5. CLG, they stayed back. Huhi resisted the urge to try to jump in there and finish off someone despite how low ReignOver was. They never put themselves in a spot that package could be delivered. And now Lourlo is again just trying to maintain control on the sides and mop up the mess being made by Darshan. Meanwhile, mid lane turret falls, and Liquid's going to go back to an advantage in that department.
And I think it's a really good point you made because oftentimes it's actually the more difficult job is for the people who are not split pushing, right? Once the split pusher is at this super strong point and can't lose the 1v1, well, guess what? Renekton is not going to fight you anymore if he's somewhat intelligent, right? He's just going to decide to just avoid you for the rest of the game, and he's going to group with the team, and he's going to try to force plays. So then you're essentially just 1v0 for most of the time. Yes, you can get collapsed on, then you have to make plays, but a CLG needs to stay safe as the rest of the team. They need to play patiently, they need to play passively, they need to establish vision, and they still have to have enough pressure that all of TL cannot just collapse on Fiora for free. So there's a lot going on, even though the split pusher often ends up looking like they're kind of doing everything.
It's a split push tightrope. You got to walk a very straight line, and just even a little bit of wobbliness, a little bit of lost balance for a moment can result in losing an inhib, losing a Nexus turret, losing a game sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you could be as strong as you want on the Fiora in a side lane, but if Renekton groups, they kill the rest of your team and take Baron, well, guess what? It doesn't matter anymore.
It's like, uh-oh. So now their support can even just sit bottom, power up the minions, and all of a sudden your job becomes incredibly hard. Golden Glue moving up topside, Huhi waiting in the brush. This is a Lich Bane done now for Kassadin as well. Golden Glue will not go any closer towards that. Huhi jumps out. You can see the ping from Liquid saying, look, he's up here. Respect that. Keep it in mind. One thing I also want to go ahead and point out, even though it's been mentioned before, 2 teleports on CLG.
Dardoch getting caught.
And Dardoch caught out again.
And that's the fight for vision, right? Like, he has to establish vision. They're going to look to start up Baron and try to pull a CLG into a fight. They're already on it. Huhi has spotted them. TP's coming in now. And they will have the man advantage. We'll see if CLG can hold them off because this Baron is going down fast and there's no smite for CLG.
Baron will do so much damage. Piglet's going to be bursted down first. ReignOver trying to get himself into the fight, but it's not going to be able to do enough. Now he's getting burned down next. Lourlo trying to survive, but Darshan will cut down those guys with a triple kill and try to make this fight happen. 4 dead on Team Liquid, and CLG finds their fight.
The fed solo laners from CLG there take over the fight. Darshan and Huhi. That was looking like it could have been a penta. I mean, that was the triple kill. Barely missed out on the quadra. Golden Glue does get out.
So close.
I mean, it was a smart play to make from TL, but they were not able to execute when the team fight actually happened. They had the man advantage, but CLG pulls it off, and they pull it off so well. Even more kills now going over onto these Fed members, and here it is again. The front line tanking up the Baron, so Piglet somewhat exposed. Huhi and Darshan get so much damage. Piglet actually rooting, like, he jumped away from the root with the 90 caliber net, trying to escape that Zyra ultimate right into Huhi's waiting arms. Darshan flies in there. It was a very quick exhaust onto the Kassadin, but they did not have 2 exhausts available, I don't think, to actually get both the Fiora and that Kassadin.
Fiora's attack animation was so perfect for that fight against ReignOver too, because he goes into the ult, he tries to make the outplay, and then he just gets bopped. As Darshan says, get off me, I am way too fed to have to deal with this right now. No damage from Dardoch in the fight because he was picked off so early, but the damage from the remaining 3 members on CLG, just too much. Dardoch getting himself away over the wall.
And you called it on the Righteous Glory, so that has been completed now. A little bit more initiation, a little bit more escape power too. The Hurricane going to be purchased up here from Stixxay, would help out with that wave clear. They want to make sure that they are going to be able to hold the line and have as much wave clear as possible. Would not be surprised to see a double Zeal build coming out. Even a static Shiv here could make a lot of sense to just amp up that wave clear even more, because they are going to be pushing on both sides. All they have to do is really play patiently and let their soul laners do their work. And while Lourlo is able to chunk out Huhi there, he's not really going to be able to chase him down, so ultimate down does relieve some lane pressure, but that's all he really gets.
Package also having to be expended there by Golden Glue is going to run out, so you just fire it off for no reason. Huhi getting himself back, and
you fired it off for style points.
You fire it off for style. Okay, fair enough. It's not for no reason whatsoever. You could just let it expire if you wanted, but that would be pretty uncool. Stixxay, Dardoch, and Aphromoo doing what we planned on them doing from the beginning of this game, sitting mid, clearing waves, trying not to get caught. And I want to talk a little bit about Dardoch's role in that, because we're seeing him on 0 and 3 this game. He started off not having the best time. He was in enemy territory when his mid laner couldn't back him up. And this has been an issue with Dardoch in the past, where he starts having a bad game and he just snowballs more and more into that tilt. But CLG needs to control that. Make sure that Dardoch is able to keep a clear mind, stay focused here.
Now this is a time where Darshan should just be staying top lane, right? This is kind of what I was talking about, the opposite side of that coin. I do think that if he just stays top side, there's no TP on Lourlo. That is a free tier 2 turret top. Instead, they make the roam down. They will kill off this mid lane turret, but they wanted to try to stop that Mountain Dragon, but they're kind of too delayed to do so, right? So you probably could have gotten, 2 turrets or at least a lot of farm and deny some of that CS on the top side. And that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about playing more greedily for yourself, and that's how you get the advantages. But back to the Dardoch point, I will say that the first death, I certainly think, was on him. I think that was some foolish play from him on that invade when they do not have lane priority in mid and top. But the last two is him kind of fighting for vision, and I'm willing to kind of give him a bit of a pass on that, because they are this 3-man squad. Zyra very squishy, Ashe certainly not the person who should be fighting for vision, so it's almost only Dardoch who can.
And now he's getting revenge for earlier. He's the one finding his opponent caught out. Righteous Glory popped and used. ReignOver trying to come back in with that ulti, dodging away from damage for a moment. Huhi almost going to be taken down, but gets himself away from Piglet, who's now going to be bonked on the head with that cast. Golden Glue eats the damage from the riposte, but Darshan walking himself away now. Looking to steal the blue as they make their way out. Keeping that off of Corki can be very big. Dardoch gonna go ahead, make sure he smites it. Off the side, Piglet is taken down. Stixxay on a killing spree. Golden Glue flash, body slam. Darshan over the wall will cut him down. Dominating for that Fiora. And now Matt and Lourlo are also headed straight for the grave. Matt, the last man standing, but not for long. A double kill for Stixxay.
The 5-for-0 ace across the map for CLG. They can head right to Baron. 3 Mountain Dragons on TL, but it doesn't matter if you can't actually secure the objectives. And ReignOver should be able to get over there if he wants to actually chance it. But he does not have the vision, he does not have the confidence that he can actually make anything happen. He's going to make the safer choice, just take down the minions, but this does mean a CLG will pick up a free Baron.
CLG was down for quite a while at the start of this game, but after that botched Baron called by Liquid, everything seems to have shifted. The pendulum has swung, and CLG firmly now in the driver's seat. Look at how far that gold grab has plummeted.
And you can really blow this gold lead wide open now, because you are at a point where you have 2 incredibly strong split pushers, and you're going to Baron up 3 lanes of minions, right? You can very easily set up the 1-3-1, and that is so big for them. But it's a nice pick playing around that vision. Dardoch waiting on the side, no one moving to trigger the Tremor Sense. That kind of gave ReignOver some of the confidence to be moving up there. He does get taken down. Huhi able to escape on the side, and Darshan kind of zoning Golden Glue out of the fight, so it's already a 5v4, and then Piglet kind of stuck around. He wanted to try to make something happen. He knows he's a pretty strong member, but Huhi and Stixxay can move over here, and you're not that strong. You do get still bursted down very quickly.
And right as I'm talking about Dardoch staying cool and not putting himself in a spot where he's being hard on himself for the death so far or starting to tilt from the performance, look at what he does. He comes back into this, sets up some awesome plays. He's the one who starts things off against ReignOver, plays his role throughout the entirety of the fight, and honestly, we heard from CLG earlier this split talking about, yeah, Dardoch's on the team, and we think we've got the tools to work together with him to really unleash his full potential.
Yeah, and so far it's looked good. I mean, he's obviously not the carry of this game, but he is doing his job. You don't always have to be the big star. You don't always have to be the carry. And when your solo laners get this fed in this composition, all you need to do is kind of walk around, get vision, just kind of play very normally, right? You don't need to make anything crazy happen because you're going to be able to bleed the game out. Already turret in the bot lane has gone down. Fiora going to be pressuring the top side. Huhi moving forward towards the inhibitor turrets now with that Lich Bane. If he gets some hits in, that's going to go very fast. And it's so hard to wave clear on all three sides when you are already behind against the Baron buff.
By the way, with as fed as Darshan is, he's currently at 2.5 items and has the money to go all the way to the Death's Dance next time he goes back to base. So that Fiora breaking point has been hit. 28 minutes into the game. Lourlo just never really able to find where he needed to be this game to make any sort of a big, meaningful impact.
And just look how much damage Huhi got with one wave. He almost killed the full inhibitor turret, right? Like, he's able to get one hit on this. This is dead now. They cannot defend it, so they're going to either have to try to start a fight with this package, and that's going to be the choice. Huhi can just back out, though. He's level 16. He has a lot of CDR. You cannot chase this guy down, so now Fiora on the other side going in on the turret there, and he's flashing forward onto Piglet.
Trying to issue the grand challenge.
God.
There's no try to it. He deletes him. The riposte coming out, trying to find the stun, buying him a little bit of extra time. Darshan skating around, looking to dodge. Can't quite do it.
But they're pushing in on the mid inhibitor turret. Huhi can go knock down that bottom one. That is one auto on the bottom turret. They're closing in on all sides.
Threats everywhere. Liquid makes their defense, though. They take down Aphromoo, now looking to go on to Stixxay. They'll find him. 2 health bars are low, but Liquid has mounted the counteroffensive. Dardoch trying to run away, going to be caught out next, trying to stop them with a body slam and buy time for Huhi, the lone remaining member of Counter Logic Gaming.
TL, they mounted a defense. They do at least make the play, take down some kills. They have lost 2 inhibitor turrets, though, all their outer turrets. So that was 5 turrets picked up there for CLG on the play, it looked like. And here is the engage, the 3-man squad, getting a little bit too aggressive. I mean, Fiora has been knocked down. They want to try to pressure while Fiora had been drawing them away, but this is just from one side of the base to the other. This is not one side of the map to the other, so probably should have backed off and played a little bit more cool, as Huhi was already on the inhibitor turrets on the bot side. So this is kind of part of the push and pull that you have to play very well as that 3-man squad. And here, Stixxay, Aphro, and Dardoch getting a bit too confident, stepping too far forward, and they make a blunder that buys TL some time.
And even though 4 CLG members died in that last fight, it was still a 3,900 gold Baron power play for CLG off of taking that buff. So considering these guys now have 2 different inhibitors that they can siege up with nothing in their way, considering they're now working on an Ocean Drake for themselves, this is still a CLG game. Liquid's got a long way to go to come back into this one.
And even just compositionally, like, you have gotten to the point where you have a level 17 Fiora and a level 17 Kassadin, and these guys are both very, very fed, right? Like, they're approaching their 4th item now at 30 minutes into the game. So no one on the map can 1v1 either of these players. And then when you put them in opposite lanes, how do you actually assign all your members? Do you put 2 with each of them? Well, then there's 3 men, only answered by 1 person from the 3-man squad of CLG, and it just gets so hard to really ever answer that with exposed inhibitors. Darshan's just going to push up the top lane, look to force on that. Huhi shoving in mid lane, and the CLG 3-man squad are trying to establish vision on the bot side and really try to keep the waves pushed up there so they can pressure on all sides.
At the beginning of this series, you said Liquid got some early advantages yesterday against Echo Fox, but that could be hard to do against CLG. And they did do it against CLG, but holding on proved to be the real difficulty. It wasn't getting that grip on the game. It was being able to hold it tight enough without it slipping away.
And it's the fact that while they got great advantages on the bot side, their mid and their top were losing very heavily because of the 3-man fight, like the 3 kills that went over in the top side of the map. And that one skirmish really did kind of dash a lot of TL's hopes for this game, because that put Darshan and Huhi at such a strong point. And now CLG looking to try to put the closing touches on this game, pressuring in on all sides. We'll see when and if they step forward to actually make that play.
Sort of splitting off into a 2-man group and a 3-man group now instead of the 1-3-1. Darshan taking a little bit of extra damage from the DOT out of the Death's Dance, as Stixxay, Aphro, and Dardoch take down the bottom lane inhibitor and get themselves back.
And that's exactly how you want to play it. So the two-man squad, Huhi and Darshan, they grouped up in the top lane. They draw 3 members up there. With Piglet and Golden Glue, as well as Matt, all up on that side, there's no real consistent damage, no real threats down on the bot side. So Dardoch, Stixxay, Aphromoo, easily able to push in and take down that inhibitor. Now you have super minions constantly spawning, putting pressure on that bottom side of the map. The Baron is up in 30 seconds, and you have taken that kind of prime inhibitor to unlock the Baron, so they can look to continue to pressure the waves while establishing vision around the Baron, and that's probably going to be their next target.
Lourlo and the rest of Liquid are going to have one heck of a fight if they want to stand a chance against CLG. The thing is, we're at the point now in the game where going for this Baron, especially with the gold lead that you have on CLG, it's really not that intimidating. When you've got somebody like Darshan and Huhi and Stixxay, the damage these guys put out, you're going to take it very quickly.
And Darshan honestly could practically solo the Baron with triple lifesteal items. Like, you don't even take damage, so it's pretty crazy. And he's going to be threatening the Nexus turrets. TL are trying to rush the Baron themselves. Darshan can maybe try to end the game, but they're going to TP for the fight. We'll see how it goes.
Dardoch going in. Piglet going to be killed first and foremost. Matt and the rest of Liquid now in some trouble. Golden Glue package out, trying to stay alive. Still going to be 2 dead on the side of Team Liquid. A double kill for Stixxay. ReignOver going to be dropping next. The roots come out, the damage goes down, and Liquid is out. A triple kill for Stixxay.
TPing into the base, and that is going to be that. The clean ace by the Baron pit. TL goes for the desperation play, knowing CLG will rush that Baron eventually. They try to make it happen. It does not. And this one's going to get closed out pretty quick.
All over but the crying. CLG taking down Nexus turrets 1 and 2. Simultaneously, Nexus itself is gone, and they go up 1-0.
Very well played game here from CLG. They are a team that has put up a lot of good game 1s, though. We'll see if they can actually replicate that in game 2, if they can close out a very strong series for themselves here, or if TL is going to be able to bounce back. Because, I mean, we did see opportunities for Team Liquid in that game. We did see points of strength. I know, namely, Piglet and Matt deserve a lot of credit, I think, for playing on the bot side of the map. You know, taking an 8-minute turret, forcing all 4 summoners of the CLG bot lane in lane. You know, that was able to get them the dragons and stuff. So they certainly had points of strength, and had that one fight topside not gone so badly, this could have looked like a very different game.
And for CLG, this is a team, like we already mentioned, top of the standings versus a team at the bottom of the standings. If you are going to start saying, we're good enough to close out these games, this is one of the ones that should be closed out 2-0. CLG is in the talk for top team in North American LCS right now. They're up there with Immortals and TSM and Cloud9. Those are the ones on everyone's minds, and you need to have 2 zeros if you want to really say, look, we're the best, we're the cleanest.
And it's proving that you can be consistent, right? Like, CLG is a team that's always struggled with consistency. And when you talk to some of these players, they believe that they are the best team in the league and that they will be proven as the best team in the league. You got to put up those results. You got to show that week in, week out, you can dominate. We'll look to see if they can do it in game 2.
We're going to throw things over to the analysts now to see what they make of the CLG win.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. You talk about them wanting to make a case for being the #1 team in the league. If they win the next game, they move to 8-2, and they are the #1 team in the league. Now, granted, it's about getting the work done here against Team Liquid, one of our bottom-tier teams at the moment. But CLG gets it done here with only maybe one minor mistake throughout the game. And they do it this time with Darshan back on that Fiora in the side lane, trying to find that split-push synergy that they used to have.
And to be fair, I actually don't really like the team comp that they ended up with. The first 3 picks, I love it, because you see what TL is going for here. They're basically trying to copy the Echo Fox strategy that they lost to in the previous day, where with the Corki, Caitlyn, they step in front of turrets. You can't get moved out of them without a hard engage. And in the first 3 picks, CLG grabs Ashe, Gragas, and Kassadin. I'm thinking, great, that's a lot of engage.
If we want to fight, we're going to fight.
Yeah, you're going to force them off the turrets. But then they go Zyra and Fiora, and they end up with a very low wave clear, not as much engage as they started out with comp that focuses more on split pushing, and it felt a little weird when they could have, you know, either put the Gragas in the top lane, not ban that Elise, and go for Rek'Sai Elise trade. They had a lot of options to get like a solid engage comp, and they opted out of it into a 1-3-1, which I didn't love.
Right, except for the fact that comp doesn't really matter anymore when you start handing kills over to late-game scaling carries very early on into the game. 7 minutes in, CLG picks up 3 kills in the river. And Darshan, being a member in this fight here, will get 1 kill, 2 assists, and he's off to the races.
And it feels like a little bit lack of decisiveness on the side of TL here. They go after Darshan, who jumps out of the way, but you have double flash. You can try and insta-give that Fiora and make this a 3v2. Instead, they take it a little slow. Golden Glue rotates up. The teleport finishes coming in. And this was still a little scary for CLG, where it's unknown if they can go, but Huhi flashes in for the slow, takes the exhaust, and kind of kites it out so the exhaust does nothing. And then a great riposte out of Darshan there. Eats a lot of damage, gets a stun on the golden glue. They're messing around with the honey fruit, but it doesn't matter. They get a 3-for-0.
I mean, I like the idea there. He pops the honey fruit to try and heal up, also gets that riposte on the stun, so it's a very well executed fight from them in that skirmish. It gets Darshan to a point where from there, he's got Ninja Tabby Vamp Scepter. He's actually beating the Renekton in lane that early on into the game.
And that's why you see people kind of opt into the Fiora Renekton matchup, because even though Renekton's known as this early game bully, if you fall a little bit behind the Fiora or eat too much jungle attention, you start losing these fights. And Darshan starts actually just all-inning and beating the Renekton straight up. And once this happens, the game is going to be a very hard one to win on the side of Team Liquid. They're going to need to execute perfectly from then on, and obviously they don't. They still have some issues. There is a Baron that they forced after just picking a jungler 21 minutes in, and that's kind of where you see the gold graph explode, because it was relatively even though CLG had a bunch of kills.
I'm actually impressed with how even the game is up until that point. Now, part of that can be due to the fact that you have two late game scaling, solo laners on the side of CLG, where Huhi was just having to take some abuse for a little while against that Corki in the mid lane because he's a Kassadin waiting to scale.
There was that moment, around the 19-20 minute mark where CLG is kind of losing a turret around mid lane. They can't really find a good opening to engage because they're still waiting for their comp to turn on a little bit. Once Dardoch gets picked, you start thinking, uh-oh, maybe this is going to go TL's way, but that mistake at the Baron pit, Darshan grabs a couple more kills, and then the Fiora is completely online and takes the game over.
Yeah, Darshan will get player of the game this time around. I think it's interesting because, again, if we reference the beginning of the day, Jat was talking about CLG that he feels of those top-tier teams does work the best as a team in their actual team play. And so even on these split-pushing champions, we saw the final fight comes down to the, a Baron contest in which Darshan has to make the decision. Do I split push the Nexus, or do I come in and provide the damage? And more often than not, Darshan's the kind of guy who's going to join his team.
And I think sometimes you can say you don't need to do that. You can keep going for that split push, end the game, and let the Kassadin harass people trying to recall. But they're so far ahead. Don't risk somehow losing that 4v5 fight. Make it a 5v5, crush the team fight, end the game. And Darshan continuing kind of this resurgent year right now, where he is arguably, statistically, the best top laner in the league almost.
The other thing, I want to go circle back to the draft, because the one thing I will say about the CLG draft that I do like is the fact that they go for late game scalers. And because you're against Team Liquid, right? Team Liquid is the kind of team that has shown, even with massive leads, struggles to close the game out. And if you are a decently well-coordinated team like you are CLG, you could probably largely stall the game out. Of course, they do lack wave clear in this instance, and that was that one moment you're talking about where they're losing their turret in the mid lane. It was evident they didn't have a way to deal with the pressure while waiting for their side lanes to get moving.
Yeah, I mean, you take these hyper-scaling 1-3-1 comp, and against a more coordinated team, maybe not the safest thing to do, but against Team Liquid, like, it's fair to draft towards your opponent. You know that they're not going to make that great decision. They pick Dardoch off in the jungle, and instead of just going for another mid-turret and slowly pushing their lead, they try and all-in around that Baron. And that's the kind of mistakes that consistently happen out of Team Liquid. You can almost bank on them doing that.
It felt like they thought they were losing more so or faster than they were, right? You mentioned when we looked at that goal graph, it was pretty even all the way through until about that Baron call. And had they just made the decision to go for a turret and take their 1K lead, extend it to a 2.5K lead, well, who knows how the next team fight will turn out, and maybe you snowball to the win off of that.
It's one of those situations, actually, where as the Renekton who's losing against the Fiora, you've been solo killed once, you probably feel more pressured than the rest of the team actually is and what the game state is at, because your four-man core is still perfectly strong at pushing in the rest of CLG.
Right, but now you feel like the timer has been moved up.
Yeah, so you feel way more pressure than the rest of your team does, and maybe you're saying, oh, let's go for Baron, like, we got to pick, great, the jungler's dead, no smite, and it's still 21 minutes, you don't have a ton of damage, you don't have a ton of tankiness, and you make some mistakes.
CLG, they found their moment, and then they snagged that victory, and they ran with it. We'll see if Team Liquid can tie the series when we come back in their series versus Counterlogic Gaming. We'll see you soon.